Hello, everybody. This is John. This is episode 3 of Defining Your Brand podcast. I am on today with Jess Vogelpohl. Jess, tell us a little bit about yourself. Thank you for being here, first of all.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm
I feel
excited.
honored to be a guest on the show. I've listened to some of your other stuff and the content that you've been putting out there, and what's really cool is some of it is just a reminder of what we should already be doing in our businesses, and a lot of it's like mind blown. Like, why didn't I think of that?
Right.
So thank you for pumping good content out in the world.
Well, I feel blessed to be able to do it because I feel like it's a way for me to learn things that I need to hear. So it's just awesome to have those kind of conversations. So
Yeah.
tell everybody that's listening what you do. We'll start with what you do. How about that?
So actually what you were just saying with it's nice to be putting this out there and learning because it's also helping you. I feel that's the same in my own business. So I am actually a sales and leadership and business coach for Southwestern Coaching. Company's been around for a really long time, since 1855.
Wow.
And I say that because it's actually really neat history, where we started off as a door-to-door Bible sales company, where these people would pull up in their little horse and buggies and go door to door and sell Bibles. And then it kind of emerged into this door-to-door educational book sales and for college age students. And then we realized that there was a need because all these big companies in Nashville were like, what the heck are you teaching these kids that they're making bank during the summer? And so the company was like, we should probably start sales coaching. So that's what I do. I work with awesome teams and team leaders and put together really cool complimentary trainings on stuff that is very real to their team that they need help kind of jumping that hurdle and just knocking it out of there for good. And then I coach a lot of really awesome clients too.
Very cool. So how long have you been doing that?
So I've been doing almost 3 years, which it feels like I just started yesterday.
Yeah.
Now,
wow.
Yeah, I know. And what's fascinating about that is now it feels like I just started yesterday, but if you would ask me in 2019, which would felt like it was this like I was like running in slow motion, it may have felt like 10 years ago.
I know the feeling.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. So tell me, like, what does day-to-day look like? You're working with entrepreneurs or businesses? How does that look like?
Yes and yes. So really what's interesting is I connect with sales leaders and talking to them, whether they're branch managers of mortgage companies or real estate brokers, or maybe they have a bunch of, like today I was actually chatting with an awesome leader, and he has a dealership in the auto industry. So what we do isn't really necessarily industry specific, but it is sales specific. So then we run these cool workshops for them.
So pretty much all of your clients are in the sales worlds?
Yes. I mean, it's fascinating. So we have clients from all the industries that I just noted, but then we even have some individuals that are attorneys, because you don't think about it, but attorneys, I mean, they have to lead gen and find clients, and small business owners or leaders that are looking to improve. But for the most part, most people have some sort of sales function to their job.
Interesting. So and knowing a little bit about you, you do, correct me if I'm wrong, workshops and then one-on-one coaching as well?
Yes. And that's what's really cool is the workshop is really it's designed to deliver content and curriculum right out the gate. So rather than the methodology of, hey, John, you don't know me very well, but you know what, you should get into coaching because everybody should have a coach, right? I mean, that works for some people, but for most people, they actually want to see more content and curriculum. So that's why we deliver it in a workshop format, is to give people that are truly coachable and ready to make that change in their business an outlet to see their curriculum and content before they say, yes, I'm going to do this. Because not everyone's a fit for us, and we're not a fit for everyone, and we want to vet them.
Right.
Just as much as they should vet us.
Right. That's so interesting, because I find that I've talked to a lot of coaches or people in that world, and they all kind of look a little different. But one thing that I find most people have in common is that it seems like they'll just take on anyone. And it seems almost like, how do I describe it? Kind of, it's like a counseling session, would you say? Is that a like a for your work?
Yeah, I mean, so for the most part, there's always that holistic level to it where you realize that somebody has massive call reluctance, which is leading to the fact that they're not making those phone calls and prospecting. But then if you dig, you peel that onion back further and further, you realize it's also a time management issue. And then
Hmm.
you realize it's actually a mindset issue as well. So there's so many layers to everything that we do, but really the core of it is designed to teach people how to sell ethically and honestly and without shortcuts by helping them with sales skills. Because we don't think about it, but knowing how to ask for referrals and navigating objections, those are sales skills.
Hmm.
Also, keeping our motivation and our mindset consistent rather than riding that roller coaster, because when your motivation is all over the place, so is your business. And then also, what are the systems around all of those things and having accountability in place?
Nice. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about, I mean, I know, and I'm sure a lot of people out there know as well, what the roller coaster is like and how you, like what that conversation is surrounding the, I know for most businesses and most entrepreneurs that people kind of live and exist on the roller coaster throughout their business. So like what kind of conversations do you have surrounding that topic?
I mean, I can never speak from experience because I've never experienced the roller coaster, right? No, and I think that that's what makes it so cool is a lot of it, we're coaching our clients on things that we've had to overcome or are overcoming. So just like you said earlier, it's kind of a good reminder. But that roller coaster, really understanding why are they on the roller coaster to begin with, and do they like being there?
Mm.
Because some people do. If you really peel it back, it's all they have ever known, so that's how they know how to survive and thrive, but it's not serving them to the best of their abilities. So I think until you can really reconnect to that fire in your belly, because whether you've been in a business for 2 months or 35 years, the reasons why we are doing what we're doing, they change with the seasons. So
Yeah.
reconnecting to that vision and knowing why you're doing what you're doing and making sure that it's fulfilling, that's key. But then living out a schedule that allows for the things in your vision to take place. So if you know, hey, I want to build my business and I want to make, I don't know, $250,000 this year, whatever that number is, well, why? What are you going to do with that? How's it going to feel when you hit that number? But then what are the bite-sized things that you need to do every single day and
Mhm.
plant those seeds consistently so you can harvest consistently?
Yeah,
And I think, does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, I find for me personally, I think that especially the topic of why is a huge kind of lens to that, why I'm on the roller coaster, because if you don't know why you're doing something, then you're just doing it to do it. And then you're letting the kind of response of your actions dictate your emotions
Yeah,
versus, like what, I have this goal, so I'm going to do this to get there. So there's a little bit of, I mean, yes, you're going to, I think, experience some things that you weren't expecting, but if you're going in with a plan, then you kind of are expecting things to a certain extent, and it takes you less on that emotional roller coaster.
absolutely. I think that's a really great way to put it. And I think one of the things that has served me well in shifting my mindset around that is I would get so disgruntled and so almost like kicking myself in the pants because the outcome that I expected was different than in reality, right?
Yeah.
And so changing my mindset that my role is to consistently plant seeds with leaders and producers and sales teams and to build those relationships without attachment to the outcome or the timeline.
Mm.
Because if I'm truly there to serve and to listen, it doesn't matter if that relationship is going to come to fruition now or in 6 years from now. If I put in the work and I'm consistently planting those seeds every single week and every single day, there will not be famine. There will always be feasting
Mm.
because with consistent seed planting comes consistent harvest.
That's good.
Mhm.
That's really good. So, um, you have a family in the midst of all of this, right?
Babies.
Tell
My
us
son's
about
about to be 1. Can you believe
that's
that?
no, that's crazy.
I know. I was just giant and pregnant. You're
So
like, no comment.
no, never. You weren't. So what does that look like for you? I mean, I find that, all of us, we have lives outside of our businesses. What does that look like for you on a day-to-day basis as a mother?
I think it's you can't see what's above me, but I actually have a picture that is boss lady, and I think that having my family is actually it's fuel to my fire, because
Yeah.
I look at them and I think of all of these things that I want to accomplish, and the vision that I have for myself, but truly showing my children that at the end of the day, you don't have to choose. You truly can be amazing at being a mom and a wife, and
Mm.
um, being great in your career. There really, it doesn't have to be a choice, but learning how to balance it all, I mean, that definitely is a thing. And I'm not always the best at it. I'm mainly good at it, but I'm not always the best. And I think it's having a good support system around you. I mean, Kurt's the best. I mean, hashtag best old fashioned maker in the biz.
For those who don't know, Kurt's your husband.
Yes. But Kurt, having that good support system in place, and then being really connected to my why is huge. And then also turning it off, like knowing that I only have a certain amount of time throughout the day to do what I need to get done. So during my day, I have to be super efficient with how I'm spending my minutes.
Yeah.
And if I'm not, then the entire night, I almost have that buyer's remorse feeling where you're like, ooh, I should have done this and I should have done that. And I'm shooting all over myself, and then I'm not present. And so making sure that I'm really effective with my time and my minutes, and being present, and putting that phone away at the end of the night.
Right.
The phone's the worst.
Well, I feel like that too is a huge thing for people because we, when you're on that roller coaster of that daily schedule and not being wise with your time, then I think it kind of, your work tends to bleed into your entire life and there's no cutoff and boundaries. And I think that that is where we get a lot of that sense of, I have to do stuff all the time and you
Yes.
never get a break.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was having this conversation the other day where I talk about mental health hurdles and what that all looks like. And really, I notice that when I'm efforting too much and I'm pushing too hard
Mm.
or doing too much, that's one of my triggers. And I immediately get overwhelmed and I'll start avoiding, and it becomes kind of this thing. Luckily, through a lot of therapy and coaching, I know my triggers, but I do think that when we effort too much and we're pushing too hard, that's when we start kind of attracting the opposite of what we want, because
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. That's
people
so,
feel that from us.
yeah. And how backwards does that seem to feel like I've got to do more, but really it seems like when we overdo it, that then we end up doing less in the
Right.
long
Because you're not going to be consistent. I mean, if you're constantly having that emotional intensity and
run.
sprinting out the gate every single day, you're going to have to stop and breathe and take a drink.
Yeah.
But you've already been predispositioned that when you stop and take a drink, that means you need to basically sit there for a long time. And then
Mm.
before you know it, it's going to be 3 weeks and a month, and you're going to have this roller coaster of seed planting, and
Yeah.
things are going to harvest at weird times, and you're never going to have that predictability in your business. But
Yeah.
if we just set a standard each week and say, okay, here's my goal, here's what I need to do to get to it, and push the needle a little bit every single week, then that is golden. Because it's always better to say talk to 10 people every single week about your business
Mm.
than talking to 100 people this week, but then not talking to another single person for 8 months.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it seems like so many of these things probably are lessons that you've learned over time. I was going to ask you, what are some things, whether it be the easy way or the hard way, or you've learned through other people, are there any lessons that you've learned that you've kind of had as takeaways for your own business?
I would say that mindset is truly everything.
Mm.
Absolutely. It all starts and ends in our brains. And
Mm.
until I started really putting the effort in on connecting to my vision and understanding my mindset, I felt like I was just kind of going with emotions. Like, I'm good in sales. Like, I've always been able to talk to people, but I was always serving my bottom line, it felt like, and I wasn't serving other people. And I think if we truly stop and realize that our businesses actually are fulfilling a need for people. And if we just stop enough to listen and
Mm.
not worry about pushing our own agenda, but building that relationship, it's all going to come to fruition. Not every single relationship will,
Yeah.
but most will, because they realize that you actually care. You actually care about them. And so I
Right.
think that's important. And then having a mindset routine in the mornings and sticking
Mm.
to a schedule. I mean, I know you and I have talked a lot about how I used to hate waking up early. And then I'd be texting you like, oh, I went back to bed today after the family left. And it's just this toxic cycle that would just build and build and build. But
Yeah.
now that I'm starting my mornings, I wake up at 5:15 a.m. every day and I freaking look forward to it now. I'm a monster. um, who am I? But now that I have that and I'm spending time and I'm just working on journaling and I've gotten really into the law of attraction and digging deep there and gratitude, that sets a tone for my day. And then
Yeah.
also realizing that it's not about me and that it's about the relationship. And that's been exponentially helpful.
Nice. So what would you say to someone like that may be watching this or listening to this that they could do, like probably like you hear common things throughout everyone that you talk to probably struggle with something in common. Do you have anything that you could kind of, talk to that people could,
Mhm.
like you had mentioned your morning routine, kind of that gratitude journal, things like that.
Get back to the basics. My clients that are in a slump or my clients that are riding that roller coaster and they can't figure out why, I ask them, are you a master of the basics right now? Which is talking to people and having conversations and living out an actual schedule.
Mm.
And most of the time the answer is no. And so if you can place an emphasis, it should be kind of simultaneously working on your mindset and getting right with that.
Yeah.
And then also the basics. What are the basics of your job? Most of them are time management, and most of them, if you're in sales of any type, is talking to people and having those conversations.
Right. And I think, I mean, I can say for myself, I feel like sometimes it's it seems so simple, like that those things are what we forget, and then we feel like we have to do, kind of going back to that point that we said before, we have to do more because we think that's these basics aren't enough. But if you're doing the basics every day, then they're eventually going to kind of grow over time versus not doing those and then feeling every day like I'm behind.
I know there's so many ways to generate leads for your business nowadays, and it almost, I think, and I know that I've been there before where I want to do all these things. I mean, I'm a millennial, like I want to go do it all and technology. But then if you really look back on it, not being able to truly have a connection or a conversation with someone to dig deep and below the surface and understand them, it doesn't matter if you have 3,000 leads coming in. If you don't have a follow-up system, you don't have time in your schedule to actually call them, and you don't know what the heck to say.
Right.
So it's really important to master those basics and then execute on those basics over and over and over again and slowly add in creativity. But you may never need to.
Yeah, that's good. Well, tell me, like, you, I mean, talking about doing a lot of different things, if you weren't doing this, what else would you be doing? Would you have any other kind of major
Yeah.
shifts?
That's a great question. I love that. I love that question. I truly do adore what I do. Truly do adore what I do. What was that sentence? But I really do. I love what I do. I think I would be doing something with music, maybe, if I was a little bit more musically inclined. I always thought it would be fun to score the movie soundtracks and like come up with all the cool soundtracks, and I just think that would be really neat. I'm starting to find my voice, and I feel like I found my voice in terms of mental wellness.
Mm.
And I made a Freudian slip the other day. I guess I said mental hellness. The woman I was talking to was like, "Ooh, that feels like let's dig deeper on that." I'm like, "I think it was a slip, an accident."
Right.
But I'm really finding my voice in the health and wellness in terms of emotional and mental health. And I think that moms are kind of an underrated, we kind of get forgotten about after we have babies. So I think one day wanting to do something for moms and mental health and giving back to the community in those terms is something that's on my bucket list.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So what does, looking forward, what does that look like? Do you have other projects in mind, or do you have a certain way that you want your business to look like going forward, or?
No, not really. I think that will kind of be a passion project one day. I mean, I have to hit a certain income level and cover all kinds of stuff in my own business and that, but I think one day that is something that I want to do. And I think what I find is making posts on social media about that, and kind of going piggybacking, or I learned the term hitchhiking on what you were saying earlier, but branding in that sphere. But I don't know. It's something I want to do, and I think I'll do it. I just don't know when. It's on my vision board.
There you go. And I know that you are one for the vision boards too. You like your vision boards.
Right here. And on the back of my what's this called? Computer.
Very nice.
Technology.
This thing. So vision boards, do you have other people do that? Do you have your clients do that?
Oh yeah. And what's funny to me, I was just having a conversation with one of my clients, and in the beginning, that I personally coach.
Yeah.
And so he was so resistant to a vision board in the beginning. He's like, that's fluffy. I don't need that crap. And he's been resistant. And so I slowly have been planting seeds now for 9 months. Okay. And he comes back to me. He's like, hey, I was at a conference and they were talking about doing vision boards. And I think I need to do one.
You're like,
and
really?
I was seriously like, he's like, I'm kidding. But now I totally recognize that now you've said it, now 5 other people have said it, and this guy said it on stage. It's time to do that. But really that concept of be, do, have. What do you want to be? What do you want to do? And what do you want to have? I think people miss that part. They put all these like inspirational words on there, but then actually put things that you want. It's okay to have a car on there or fancy clothes.
Well, I remember back in the day, we would talk about that, and I created my vision board, and on there, one of the things was to take a vacation for myself.
Yes.
I am doing that in a couple weeks here. I'm going to California.
Woo!
I cannot wait. It's like the first vacation I've taken probably on my own ever. I always go with somebody, and then it's the first, and I haven't taken a vacation in like 6 years.
So what you're saying is you don't want me to go with you?
I mean, get a flight. Come on, let's go hang at California. I am ready. I can't wait.
Yay! Well, I'm excited for you. You deserve it.
I'm a big believer in the vision boards now. So all of you watching and listening.
Yes. Well, and you know what's fascinating is we've all heard, okay, have a vision board, think positively. And it wasn't until I started really digging deeper into why. And really, I could get totally dorky on you, like even more dorky than usual, about the neuroscience and what's actually happening in your body when you're thinking positively, and really all the changes that happen. So it's crazy. I heard this really cool study about this group of individuals. Okay, so their brain waves were measured upon entrance into this week-long, I guess, study, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And then they're also, they measure their cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and their immunoglobulin A, which is your immune system. See, dorky, got me started. And then all they asked them to do was every day for 10 minutes, meditate. Just clear your brain and just focus on the now and your breathing. That's it. And at the end of the week, they went back and they studied all these people. They measured their brain waves, their cortisol, their IgA level. And what they found was astonishing, that their cortisol levels had drastically decreased, and they had actually increased their immune system, their IgA. So the power of positive thinking and staying grounded in your feelings and your emotions, it actually does things to you. So now it makes me really want to police my thoughts even more.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I don't know if you have done this, or because I feel like when I try to meditate, I end up just thinking about, oh, well, you need to do this. You need
I suck at meditating.
It becomes
clear my brain.
Yeah. So it reminds me of, this feels weird to say, but the movie Eat, Pray, Love from a long time ago. There's that scene in there where she's like, she's looking at the other person. She's like, how does she do it? And then she's just thinking about all the things that she wants to do. I can very much relate to that.
But it's so interesting though, because she ends up going at the end, that retreat that she's there for like whatever, like, I don't even know, but it's a very long amount of time to sit still. And I feel that way too. I remember I yoga and meditation and all that. And I remember thinking the same thing. I'm like, I must be really bad at meditating because I can't clear my brain. And then I'm thinking about how bad I am.
Right.
And I have worked up now to 10 minutes a day. I mean, I'm not kidding you. It was like 1 minute. I started off with 1 minute of just listening to myself breathe,
Mm.
and then just moving forward. And somebody gave me this really cool advice that when a thought pops into your head, just acknowledge it and then get back to it.
Yeah.
Because it's just like nobody goes and runs 10 miles. Like
Right.
if you haven't ran in a long time. I mean, I'm sure there's some people out there. I couldn't.
I wouldn't
But
either.
yeah, right. Like you don't just go and all of a sudden run 10 miles. You don't just all of a sudden squat 350 pounds. It's small incremental shifts and changes. It's the same thing with meditation. It's a skill.
Yeah. Yeah. Something that you have to actually put into practice and do regularly every day.
Right. You didn't just all of a sudden one day wake up and take beautiful pictures.
No,
Maybe. I don't know.
no, trust me.
It's been a lot of learning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's funny too that like in our personal lives and our minds and all of that, that we think about that being learning. You know what I mean? Like we think about it in work and our businesses and money and all of these things, but to talk about mental health and meditation and all of those things, to think about we have to learn how to be good at that seems like such a foreign concept.
Right. It was definitely something that I did not grow up around or know much about. And now I wish that my parents were still alive for lots of reasons. But one of them is to share all the things that I've learned just really in the last year about mental health and how to take care of yourself, and to really know those triggers and all of these things to make sure that I am my best possible self. And 2019 was a weird year. It was so weird between all these different things and ups and downs, but it was my favorite year in terms of learning and growing, because I really started in on my spiritual development and
Yeah.
understanding myself as a person that has depression, that has anxiety, but that also still loves working and being in a fulfilling life.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a hard, for me, I don't know about other people that are watching or for you. Like sometimes I feel like there's that balance. And I was nervous going into doing my own business because I was afraid of what if my work becomes something that I don't enjoy? What if I end up, like not regretting it, but just kind of wishing I would have just left it as just a hobby. And I think that for me, again, I have to just go back to the love of it and sometimes do things that is not a job, or, just to kind of make sure that I'm remembering why I started it in the beginning, because it can turn into something that it wasn't intended to be, I think, for all of us.
Yeah, I think that is like really epic advice that for everybody, is because a lot of us, and hopefully a lot of people listening or watching are in jobs that actually provide them with joy. And unfortunately, I know there's a lot of people out there that don't, but I feel like if you are, and at the core that that is what you love and what you want to be doing, finding that connection again, because it's easy to lose when you get lost in the shuffle of finances and paying bills and life and illness and families and all of those things, that you
Yeah.
do lose sight of why you're doing it. And I think that always coming back to that connection of and finding that fire, but then also having accountability behind it, having someone that can say and call it out in you, hey, I mean, you're being weird and you're not as joyful as you usually are. What's going on? And
Right.
whether that's a coach or a counselor or a really good friend or a significant other, not being afraid to call out greatness in one another.
Yeah. That's hard to receive sometimes. Like for me, it's weird for me to hear that it's hard for me to hear that I'm good at something sometimes. And then makes it even more like there's like a resistance there when you start to hear it. You want to push back and you're like, oh, I think a lot, and you talk about, moms. I am sure that there's a lot of this in that community of that pushback of, oh, I'm not that great, or I'm not that good at this, or there's always an excuse or a reason kind of in response to someone calling out that greatness, as you call it.
Yeah, well, I think there's this culture of unworthiness that we live in, where it's almost the norm for us to be born unworthy, and then our entire lives trying to find that worth, but really recognizing that we are already worthy of everything that we want. And I always say to the people, because I've been that way too, like when I first started at Southwestern, I had what we call really fast start, and I was just blissfully unaware of all the hurdles I was going to throw up and put in my way, because I got in my way. But I had this fast start and I was going and doing everything that I needed to do. And I kept telling myself, you're just lucky. You're just in the right place at the right time. And none of this is because of your effort. Oh, man, that was a good year of not fun, not a good year. It was a good year of not being a good year.
That's
But how many of us think that? I mean, anytime somebody tells you, hey, gives you a compliment, and the first thing you think is, well, yeah, okay, well, this dress that you said looks good on me. I mean, it's getting a little weird right here, and it kind of clings here. Just say thank you. Just say
we're
freaking thank you.
quick to point out the flaws. And I think probably because we're afraid of someone else seeing the flaws, so we want to point it out quickly. We want to make sure that it's out of the way. Because it's like you can't just, in our own minds, it seems like we can't just be good at something. I don't know where.
Yeah, totally. Or I don't know, it's almost like, do we not want to say thank you, or does that make us not humble? Does that make us seem vain? When what's really interesting, I think it's so funny especially when you go to compliment a female, no offense, I mean, I am one, but when you compliment them and they start going into this whole like diatribe of all of these things, and before you know it, you're like, I just told you that your hair was pretty, and now all of a sudden I'm hearing about how you have weird toes. Like, what is that? And I don't understand why we have to do that. So one of the things that it's called imposter syndrome. So if you find yourself not being able to say thank you to a compliment or feeling unworthy, then I would look that up. But then I would challenge everyone, because I had this challenge to me. So anytime anyone pays you a compliment, just say thank you. And if you start in your brain like doing that spiral around the drain, just tell yourself, I will not allow toxic thoughts, or you deserve that compliment, because you truly can rewire that thought process.
Yeah. And I feel like for me, sometimes just maybe you can't control the thoughts yet, but just starting with the saying of thank you and not saying anything else, or not making like a reason why that might be okay. Just
Yeah.
like say it and then allow the thoughts to come in maybe initially, but then practice, next time. Okay, now we can say thank you. Let's try to block the following thoughts that are going to come after that.
Yeah, and then really work on why you're not convicted in yourself enough to feel like you are worthy of that compliment.
Right.
And I think that was hitchhike on your other question earlier, is one of the things that I have so desperately learned is I've always been convicted in the company that I work for, and that that I'm a part of the family with. But I think I lost or never had the conviction in myself to introduce people to this company. Like the systems that we have are great. The company is great. The product is awesome. All the coaches are great, but I lost the conviction in my ability to do that. And then that is, doubt, and the good old doubt wheel. And, but I think once we find that conviction, it's so much more important to be convicted in who you are and your ability to do something.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Yeah. That just believing in yourself. I mean, it seems so simple, but that seems to be a huge struggle, because I heard, speaking of working with a company, I heard from a photographer standpoint, this woman who's very successful now, but before she was working with a studio, and she said that it was always easy for her to make the studio money, but it was very difficult for her to get paid what the studio was getting paid if she just shot it. She's doing the same work, like she's shooting both things, but one she could point to the studio, and the other one she was pointing to herself. And so kind of deciphering those two, it's an interesting battle.
Well, I think too, like when you're convicted in you and your ability to serve up, like in the terms of photographer, if you're truly convicted in yourself, and let's be honest, there are so many photographers out there, just like anybody listening, there's so many of you within the industry that we often feel like the market is saturated, but you offer something that no one else does, and that's you. That is yourself and your ability to, so getting convicted in that and knowing that at the end of the day, if you truly believe in yourself and you're convicted in what you offer, then you're doing your prospective clients a disservice
Yeah.
by not talking to them and having those conversations and building those relationships, because then they're just going to go to another Joe Schmo photographer and they're not going to get as good of an experience or as beautiful as pictures.
Right. And I think something that I think about a lot is putting ourselves in the place of someone that we care about, and then thinking about, okay, now say to that person the things that you're saying to yourself. Like, are would you say that to someone that you really care about, that they're not good enough, or they're not worth being hired, or that someone else should just go, a client should just go to someone else that does the same thing, and that they should just struggle? I think it would be a lot harder for us to say that than it would be to say to ourselves. But then we have to realize that we are that person to someone else,
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I can't remember the exact quote, but I heard it recently at a seminar or conference where people want to buy from you because they recognize something within you that they want.
Mm,
And so that's why it's so important to be having that brand and that following, or creating that life of that digital footprint. Not that is, I don't want to say disingenuine, because people can see right through that. And honestly, the more disingenuine, I feel like the less engagement you have.
yeah.
But it's so important to build that brand, because there's a million of you in any given moment in terms of job title, but there's not one specifically you that can deliver that service that way. And so that's so important.
Right. For sure. Well, tell us what you're up to next. What's on the horizon? What does life look like going forward for you?
Well, my son turns 1 tomorrow, so I'll probably be crying a little bit.
Well, congratulations to him. You
Thank
should
you.
tell him I said happy birthday.
I will. Nobody talk to me tomorrow. I'm going to be in a weird state. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be really joyful. I think my goal right now is, like I said earlier, just to continue to build those relationships with people, and then not having any attachment to what's going to happen, or really knowing if anything's going to happen. One of the things I've been doing lately is, the algorithm on Facebook, again, not to get too nerdy. Actually, you probably know more about this than I do, but the people you may know section, it's constantly presenting you with a plethora of people that are probably targets for you, or prospects, or someone that you should connect with. And I realized this. And I've just been saying yes to connecting with a lot of people, and then sending them a video to say that I want to learn more of their story and I want to have a genuine connection, to see if we're a fit to work with one another, or if our paths never really need to cross again, besides clapping for each other on social media. And I
Yeah.
think interjecting that genuineness, that I really do care now
Right.
about people, is huge. So continuing my thing, I say every single day that I'm working to attract, and my intention is I am working to connect with the leaders that are in harmony and align with the messages of our company, and align with my fundamentals as a coach, in order to present them with an opportunity to help their team grow and develop. And that term harmony and in alignment is huge, because if they're not, I don't necessarily want to work with them. It's going to be too much efforting.
Right.
So
And
we
it's
want,
okay. It's
yeah,
okay.
yeah. We want to try. I want to attract the people that want to grow and be better, and so that's huge for me. And this year, I'm working really hard to hit the milestone of becoming a team leader. I've got Team 1111 coming at you, hopefully in September, and just continuing to grow and to be the best possible coach and mom and wife that I can be.
Very nice. And I think that thing that you said about, I, I feel so people are so restrictive on who they want to connect with, and like, I already have enough friends, I already have this and that. But I think that opening yourself up to relationships and opportunities is huge. And I think that the more we block ourselves from potentially connecting with people, like that can kind of parallel with our personal lives too, that we're blocking ourselves from opportunities. So
Yeah,
I think
use social media, dudes. It's
yeah,
great.
and
Use it.
that's such a great like tip. That's so funny. I feel like I've done that kind of subconsciously, but not really, actively gone in there and thought, they're suggesting these people for a reason. So let me see,
Right.
who these people are. If I don't know them, maybe I should get to know them.
Exactly. And I had a conversation with one of our former clients that I didn't coach. I really had never no interaction with, but somehow I got connected to on Facebook, and I just picked up the phone and called him. And he
Mhm.
said, that initial message that you sent me of, hey, I'm really looking forward to learning your story and connecting further. Talk soon. Thank you for connecting. Why don't you send that in a video?
Mm,
And I was like,
genius.
what? Because I'm calling people, and sometimes I will. I prefer to do business through referrals, but
Yeah.
there might be people that I want to connect with. And it's the same as leaving a voicemail, but then they can see, hey, she's not a complete monster. She looks pretty, she looks pretty approachable. I think I'm going to at least talk to her.
Yeah. Why not? Give it a try.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the lesson today for everybody listening, is to go out there and build relationships.
Yeah. Because you're great.
That's right. And there's only one you.
Dun, dun, dun.
So
Unless
where
you
can,
have a twin.
what?
Unless you have a twin.
Well, they're still different.
No.
Just look the same.
Just kidding. Shout
And
out twins.
twins. So Jess, where can people find you online if they want to hear more of your positive outlook?
Yeah, you can find me at jvogelpohl@aol.com. I'm just kidding.
AOL.
Uh, Since somebody make like those the noises for AOL.
Right.
But
Wow.
find me on Facebook. I love to connect. I'm sure my name will be somewhere. It's Jess Vogelpohl. God love my husband. I know I love him because that's a doozy of a name. You can find me on Instagram, and I'm always willing to open and chat and see if our paths need to cross more.
Yeah, and I will link all of those in the description. So if you don't know how to spell her name, which most of us don't, you can click on that and go check her out and go start a conversation with her and become friends.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Fun to have you on, and hopefully everybody will start talking to you and having a good time.
As long as they're in harmony and alignment, right?
Harmony. Right. All right.
Thanks, John.
Talk to you later.
Bye.